this video, we'll be discussing offhand shooting for hunting. This video is in no way, shape, or form a discussion of shooting techniques for competition or tactical shooting. I'm also not going to teach you how to shoot in this video. You should already know how to do that. This video is just a rundown of common mistakes I see hunters make while attempting to shoot offhand out in the field. So don't expect a shooting lesson in this video. I also want to add that offhand shooting should be avoided whenever possible. You know, it's the least accurate way to shoot and takes a lot of practice to gain proficiency at. Offhand shots are for those encounters when a target quickly presents itself and you have seconds to get off a shot without spooking an animal. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this video as I talk about offhand shooting for the hunter. Offhand shooting is simply making a quick shot from the standing position without the use of any objects for support. Offhand shooting is the quickest way to get on target and take down an animal, but it's also the least stable and least accurate position to shoot from. Many years ago, just when military and law enforcement decided that extreme long-range sniping was the rage of the future, long-range shooting schools opened up all over the country to meet these new training needs. And I remember attending one of these schools in Arizona as part of a magazine article I was writing at the time. I was one of the only two people in that class of 30 who wasn't actively serving in the military or law enforcement. And, you know, many of the participants in that class were actively working as snipers and sharpshooters. So that class was a sampling of some real professionals that were at the top of their game. On the third day of that class, the instructors had us all go prone on the 100-yard line to shoot a group for the morning to start the day off. And then, to our surprise, after we shot that initial group, the instructors told us to stand up and shoot a group while standing. And let me tell you, my mind was completely blown. All of these expert marksmen were completely missing the 6-inch center of the target. And actually, a lot of the shots were missing the paper entirely. I mean, it was a complete shit show, but it was a wake-up call. So the moral of my story is that offhand shooting is the toughest thing to master in the shooting world. Most experts will never master their offhand shot. But in the hunting world, lots of opportunities only come to those who can deliver a quick, accurate offhand shot. While it's true that you should always look for a supported or stable position whenever possible, you're cheating yourself by not being able to shoot offhand. Like with anything shooting related, a good offhand shot starts with a good base. Many competition shooters and even high power shooters use what's called the biathlon stance. It works for shooting paper with a target gun, a palm rest, and a target shooting jacket, but it's really not feasible for hunting, especially with a lightweight, full power hunting rifle in a hunting situation. The problem with the biathlon stance is that it takes so long to get into the position that you're better off getting into a supported shooting position or dropping into a prone or seated position. Also, the biathlon stance doesn't allow movement or tracking of the animal. And lastly, the biathlon stance is horrible at controlling recoil from lightweight, heavy-hitting hunting rifles. So we're going to use what's known as the free arm standing position when we're forced to shoot offhand while hunting. The phrase, "get into a fighting stance," has turned into somewhat of a cliche in the firearms world, but it's actually the best way to approach a shooting stance. You know, human beings are predators, and as predatory animals, we have eyes that face forward and provide binocular vision. to take advantage of this, we have to orient ourselves towards our prey or towards the threat when we hunt or fight. Otherwise our incredible depth perception and ability to see details is completely wasted. In addition to keeping our head oriented towards the threat or our prey, it's also good to square off your body slightly toward the threat to some degree. Squaring off your body gives you more stability, and it lets the rifle butt sit squarely in the pocket of the shoulder. You see that? I'm oriented towards the prey right there. You can see that comes up and it fits squarely in the pocket of my shoulder right there. If I stand in too much of a bladed stance, like a biathlon shooter or competition shooter like that, you can see that the butt doesn't sit squarely in my shoulder, and you're going to get hammered by recoil and shoot less accurately like this. So, this works fine if you're wearing a shooting jacket and you have a palm rest and, you're shooting small bore competition or air rifle. A stance like this will work, fully bladed like that. But when you're hunting, especially with a lightweight hunting rifle and a bigger proper hunting caliber, you need to square off like that. You don't have to go fully square like some of the AR-15 guys, the tactical guys, but just slightly, maybe 30 degrees, square your body towards the threat, and it'll fit right in that pocket right there. You won't be too far out like on your deltoid, and you won't be too far in on your collarbone. You'll be just right. With feet placement, I personally like my feet just over shoulder width apart, with my forward foot pointing at the target. But don't overthink footwork. Do what feels comfortable and natural. Just make sure you have that slight forward lean in the body, and most of your weight's on the balls of your feet rather than your heels. And another important aspect of your stance is to lean slightly forward. You don't want to go too much forward, but just kind of lean slightly forward to where you're putting the majority of your body weight on the balls of your foot rather than the heels. Women are actually the hardest people to teach the offhand shot to because of their physiology. Women naturally want to lean back while they're holding a heavy object. A lot of guys do this too. An instructor I used to know called guys that shot like this, this shooting style, the gangster lean. But that gangster lean makes your stance unstable, and it also messes with proper cheek weld and eye relief. And to tell you the truth, it makes the effects of recoil much worse too. So you always want to lean slightly forward in your shooting stance when you're shooting offhand. I always teach people to hold your rifle like somebody's going to grab the barrel and try to throw you off balance. Imagine somebody grabbing the barrel of the rifle trying to throw you off balance. And if you could stay stable during that, you're in the right shooting position. Over the years, I've noticed that people who spend a lot of time behind a shotgun usually make the best offhand rifle shooters while hunting. This is mainly because they already have a good stance and a great cheek weld. If you learn to shoot offhand from a tactical instructor, understand that much of that instruction doesn't really translate into the bolt-action rifle world while hunting. AR-15s have handguards that completely encompass the entire barrel, and you're probably taught to shoot with some variation of a C-clamp grip, which is fantastic for transitioning between targets with a lot of control in a tactical environment. Or perhaps you prefer the magwell grip, or perhaps you prefer some type of thumb brake grip on a forward style grip device. But the point is that those training techniques revolve around close quarters combat with an assault rifle, not hunting with a hunting rifle. With a hunting rifle, you never want to use that C-clamp grip like that, because holding a thin profile hunting barrel by the barrel is going to throw off your point of impact. Also, optics on a hunting rifle are mounted much lower than an AR-15, so your hand over the barrel is going to block your sights. So that's no good. Basically, with the hunting rifle, just hold the forend in a way that feels comfortable for you, without touching the barrel. Don't hold it loosely, but also you don't have to put the death grip on it. Another area where hunting differs from tactical shooting is trigger hand and arm placement. A tactical gun has a pistol grip on it, and that pistol grip allows the user to tuck the elbow down tight into the body for a compact and rigid structure. By contrast, the wrist on a hunting rifle requires the shooter to slightly flare their elbow outward, which is okay. But I personally prefer to stay away from the early 20th century standard practice of flaring the elbow out at 90 degrees while you're shooting a rifle. This is often referred to as chicken winging because your arm looks like a chicken wing flapping out there. The chicken wing really is an unnatural position when using modern rifle stocks. Old muskets and vintage military rifles had stocks with a very straight grip on them, which made the chicken wing stance a more natural position. But modern stock designs have wrists on them that form more of a pistol grip, which makes that elbow drop more natural and comfortable. So elbow height is going to be determined by grip angle. Don't force an elbow position because somebody told you to shoot that way. Grip angle will determine elbow height. And the more horizontal the grip is, the higher the elbow needs to be. That's why if you're shooting an AR, your elbow's down here. If you're shooting a musket or an old military vintage rifle, your elbow's going to be up here. So that's all you need to know about the position of your shooting elbow. And lastly, pull the rifle into your shoulder with the dominant hand. This adds stability and lessens the effect of recoil by eliminating any space between the buttstock and the shoulder. So give it a good pull into your shoulder. Don't force it as hard as you can, but definitely don't let it sit loose on your shoulder. Put a little bit of force on it. Cheek weld is the most complicated and divisive subject in the rifle shooting world. Only one thing really matters though. Your cheek weld needs to be the same every time. Also, don't bring your cheek into the stock. What I mean by that is don't mount the rifle into the pocket of your shoulder and then try to bring your cheek down to the stock for the stock weld. You always bring the stock into your cheek first. But there's a problem here. Bringing the rifle into your cheek for the proper sight picture while also keeping the buttstock squarely in the pocket of the shoulder is no perfect task. The first major problem with getting a proper cheek weld is that everybody has a different build. Some guys have no neck at all, and I've seen other guys out there that have necks like damn giraffes. Some people have shorter, squattier faces, kind of like I do, and some folks have really long, stretched out faces. And none of these people are going to achieve the proper cheek weld the same way. In order for a rifle stock to get into the shoulder pocket properly while maintaining a cheek weld, some people have to do what's called scrunching. When you scrunch this is when you scrunch your shoulder up to raise your shoulder pocket, and sometimes even have to scrunch your neck down to get the proper cheek weld. So that's basically scrunching is a compromise in order to get everything aligned correctly. Basically, like I said before, you're going to bring the stock up to the cheek first. You're going to bring it up. When you get good at cheek weld, you could do it all in one fluid motion at the same time. And that's kind of what I'm used to. It's hard for me to break down each step because I'm so used to getting a proper cheek weld in one fluid motion. But you could see I have to scrunch. You see my shoulder come up right there? I'm not bringing my head down to the rifle stock. I'm bringing the stock to my cheek and I'm doing a little scrunch. Yeah, my neck has to come down a little bit, but my shoulder has to come up. Because if I'm sitting here rigid like this and I bring it up for a cheek weld, look at that. The toe of this stock is going to leave the bruise of a lifetime if I'm shooting a 338 Win Mag at a moose. So you don't want that. This needs to be down here in the pocket of the shoulder. And in order to get that cheek weld, I'm going to have to scrunch this shoulder up and kind of crook my neck down a little bit. See, it's right there. I'm not canning my head down or bringing my head down to the rifle stock, bringing the stock up to my cheek, but there's a little bit of scrunching involved there. And a lot of people have to compromise and do this. There's very few people on this earth that can just stand there erect and get proper cheek weld while at the same time maintaining a proper mounting to the pocket of the shoulder. It's very rare somebody can do that. So in all likelihood, you're going to have to scrunch. You know, the bottom line is that you need to mount the stock to your cheek for a proper cheek weld and sight picture, and do it the same every single time. Even when you peruse through a lot of the gun magazines and gun rags, you'll see a lot of the experts when they're shooting. You see this guy right here has great cheek weld, but he has to do the scrunch. You know, so whether a lot of these pros know it or not, most of them are actually using the scrunch. And here's Wayne, and guess what? Wayne is doing the scrunch. And then move over here. Here's Craig Boddington. Guess what Craig is doing? Craig Boddington is doing the scrunch. Sight picture while shooting offhand is the area where things are going to start to get a little bit weird. First of all, if you're out hunting with the rifle in your hands, the scope should be on its lowest magnification setting. You know, I like to use scopes for hunting that at least go down to 3 power. You know, I don't really want to walk around the woods with the possibility of having to take an offhand snapshot at something with anything more than 3 power. So always, while you're out hunting, you should always have your scope on its lowest setting. When offhand shooting, you know, basically the lower the magnification, the better. It sounds crazy, but I can shoot offhand more accurately at 50 yards with iron sights than I can with the scope. This is because offhand shooting isn't stable, and the rifle is moving a little bit. You know, I'm going to exaggerate it here, but the rifle's actually moving while you're holding it, and there's no way to avoid that. You know, you can't eliminate movement in the offhand position, no matter how hard you try. This slight movement intensifies as wobble in your scope. And that wobble gets magnitudes worse as you go up in magnification. So this is the point where things are going to get really weird for a lot of new shooters out there. We're going to combat that uncontrolled movement or wobble with the controlled movement. That's right. We're going to move an already moving rifle. So another technique that a lot of shooters use when shooting in the offhand position to mitigate the wobble problem is that they're going to move their reticle in a pattern over the target and time it to where the trigger breaks as the crosshair crosses the point of aim. You know, some guys do little figure eights and others do, you know, concentrically small circles. You know, some guys do U's. They'll do like a U and then bam, break the trigger at the top of the U. Some do J's and they'll break the trigger at the top of a J. But most of the guys I know that use this technique use little figure eights over a center point, and they'll break the trigger when the reticle moves across that center point. So using a pattern technique actually improves accuracy when shooting offhand. Just be mindful that this technique isn't useful all the time. Now, of course, this reticle pattern moving technique doesn't apply to all hunting situations when you're shooting offhand. I mean, if you come over a hill and there's a buck of a lifetime just sitting down there, staring you right in the eye from 25 yards away, you're not going to sit there and mess around with trying to make little circles or figure eights or anything. You're literally just going to put the reticle on that damn thing where you want the bullet to hit and pull the trigger. So it doesn't apply to all situations. Offhand shots are something you only take when there's no other way to do it. I personally only take them when I have a surprise encounter with an animal at very short ranges, about 50 yards and in probably. When animals are further out than that, I almost always have time to set up a supported shot or get into a better shooting position like sitting or kneeling. Whether I'm using a tree or a pack or my shooting sticks, usually if the animal's, 75, 100 yards out, I don't really have to shoot offhand because I have time to set up a better position. But those surprise encounters with animals at close range happen more than you think. And I've taken countless animals over the years with offhand shots.
Good shot.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you. Well done.
So never go to the range without doing offhand practice, because if you hunt enough, you're going to need it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and I provided you with some content that you can't really find anywhere else on YouTube. I hope you found this video worthy of your subscription. You can reach me with any questions or comments at desertdogoutdoors@gmail.com. Well, thanks for watching, and as always, good hunting.